All right, guys, welcome back, and we are finally going to dive into some of this drama with Snow White, Rachel Zegler, and all the insanity around this movie. And before we begin, I want to address something. A lot of people, primarily women that I've seen online, are saying, why do a bunch of grown men care about this fictional Snow White movie? Why do grown men care about a children's film? It's getting to be a bit tiresome to keep hearing the same argument time and time again. People have tried to say the same thing about Star Wars, even Lord of the Rings to some extent, because again, fiction, right? What does it matter? It's not, real anyways. The reality is Snow White, and by extension brands like Star Wars, a lot of these brands that used to be popular when some of us were children, are not popular anymore, and the only people that are going to spend the money or take the time to invest in showing their kids these movies are grown adult people, primarily men. The ones who actually spend the money to go see these things or who make the money for their households. So to say that why do men care about Snow White is a pretty disingenuous take, to be honest. That being said, back on March 11th, we saw this article from the New York Post saying Disney has scaled back its Snow White premiere as controversy surrounding the film grows. This is not surprising, because anybody who's been paying attention knows that Rachel Zegler, the lead actress in Snow White, the Latina female who very proudly Latina, decided it's okay to be white not be white, I guess, as Snow White. I guess they said she's got the name Snow White because she survived a snowstorm or some dumb crap like that. Whatever. She has been very inflammatory. And what's funny now is we're now seeing situations where Disney is actually being sued by a group of little people actors who were snubbed. In place of having little people play the dwarves, they actually got CG dwarves, which look terrifying. I'm sure most of you guys have seen these pictures here, but this is absolutely like nightmare fuel crap. Not to mention her hair bob is just like brutal. There is so much bad with this movie. I can't even begin to dissect it entirely. But a lot of this began primarily with Rachel Zegler herself. And I'm going to let you listen to her in her own words leading up to this film being released, guys.
I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Because this is exactly what Snow White has always been, right? About Snow White becoming the leader that she always knew she could be. And to be fair, I think they kind of tried this with the last one that had Charlize Theron as the evil queen. If I'm not mistaken, it was Kristen Stewart, the girl from Twilight that played Snow White. And she was pretty terrible, again, in that film. I liked the film other than Kristen Stewart. I'm going to admit that right now. I didn't think the film was that bad. But again, we also see these other videos from Rachel Zegler from not all that long ago.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see. And to...
This is a complete narcissist. If you've ever wondered what a classic case of a narcissist is, this girl is it, okay? So then, of course, we see articles from Deadline from a few days ago saying Snow White, how controversial Disney princess fared in blue and red county cinemas box office, breaking down basically in the Trumpier areas. I hate that terminology. Like, okay, well, in Trump areas, it didn't do as well versus like Democrat areas, it did. I don't know. I don't care about that. What I care about is this right here. The Rachel Zegler Gal Gadot live-action take of the 1937 Disney animated classic bombed at the domestic box office with a $43 million opening off a reported $270 million production cost, okay, before advertising and marketing. $270 million before advertising, and it made $43 million its opening weekend. Like I said, I don't care which area it did better in, red versus blue. I don't care about all that crap. But people rightfully are memeing All of this to hell. Price of Reason says Rachel Zegler is celebrating Snow White being #1 at the box office. I suspect she doesn't know how budgets work. And I believe on this Instagram post, she actually locked the replies. Cosmic Marvel says Snow White star regular via Instagram. Behind every strong woman is herself with a bob. I don't know if this is a real quote or not, but like I said again, people have been comparing her to Lord Farquaad from Shrek with that haircut. Scenes from Snow White with a wonderfully diverse cast. Says they have even managed to flood 16th century Germany with third world migrants in the new Snow White. And again, I get it. It's a Disney film. You're going to see a wonderfully diverse cast. It just kind of is the nature of how it goes. I don't even know if that's the biggest problem for me with this movie, is that it's got a bunch of, mixed race people. For that might be the smallest issue this movie has. There are so many bigger flaws with this film than just the fact that they injected artificial diversity. Packer Girl says the Snow White memes. You've got the princess saying, "Save me." And of course, the guy who's not the prince anymore, but I guess the leader of the bandits, says, "But you're a strong, independent woman who needs no man." SNN News says, "Hi, Adam." Talking to this guy saying that it flopped because Gal Gadot is Israeli. Snow White flopped because they cast a hairy little commie retard who has a face like a disc sander and the personality of a colonoscopy camera. I've had colonoscopies. I can attest to that. She's very much reminds me of having one. Alan Ing from Film Threat says, "Reminds me of that time my rice cooker exploded," talking about the final scene of the movie. And again, I don't know. Maybe if it was a better movie, people would care less about this. It just looks weird. People have compared it to a Diddy party. Just, missing the baby oil. So, I mean, that could be a thing even. But that brings us to this newest article today from Variety. And this is very, very interesting. It says, inside Disney's Snow White fiasco, death threats, beefed up security, and a social media guru for Rachel Zegler. Well, clearly that didn't work too well. It says, on August 12th, 2024, 3 days after Rachel Zegler hit the stage at Disney's D23 fan event to introduce the first official trailer of Snow White, she thanked supporters effusively, that's a big word, in an X post for driving the teaser to 120 million views in 24 hours. 1 minute later, she added an afterthought saying, "Always remember Free Palestine." What's funny is, excuse me, I had to burp there. If I'm not mistaken, no matter how many views these videos got, they did very poorly in the like to dislike ratio. That addendum, the article says, which amassed 8.8 million views, nearly 4 times the number for the initial post, quickly made the rounds, with many inside the studio expressing shock that the Snow White star would commingle the promotion of its $270 million tentpole with any kind of political statement. Yeah, not a good look. Not a very smart move. A Disney executive raised the studio's concerns with the Zegler's team, while the film's producer, Mark Platt, flew to New York to speak directly with her. But the actress, whose relationship with the studio began to unravel in 2022 during a contentious West Side Story Awards season campaign, and continued as she trashed the beloved original Snow White, stood her ground, and the post remained. Behind the scenes, death threats towards Zegler's co-star Gal Gadot, who is really spiked, and Disney had to pay for additional security for the mother of 4. So again, it wasn't security for Rachel Zegler, it was for her Israeli co-star. Interesting. She didn't understand the repercussions of her actions as far as what that meant for the film, for Gal, or for anyone, says one insider. 3 months later, following the presidential election, Zegler posted F Donald Trump and made Trump supporters never know peace on Instagram. Disney had had enough, given that the star was signaling to half the potential audience of an already troubled film plagued by costly reshoots to stay home. I'd say more than half, because the majority of people who have kids who are going to take kids to a movie, let's be fair, are more traditionally minded people, even if they're not Republican or conservative. If you're married and or have children that you're going to take to a film, odds are you might lean to more traditional sensibilities, right? So Platt made the case to Zegler. After a back and forth, she began working with a social media guru paid for by Disney to vet any posts before the film's March 21st bow. Disney declined comment, and Zegler did not respond to a request for comments. Now that the film's dismal opening weekend, 87 million worldwide, is in the rearview mirror, Burbank brass are evaluating what went wrong. To put Snow White's global box office haul into perspective, it's about 34 million less than Joker Folie à Deux in October, but with a bigger budget by 70 million. It made less money than the Joker sequel. Holy crap. You can't say that a live-action remake of the most iconic film in the vault that cost $270 million and has been reshot multiple times, opening to $50 million, is okay. The math does not work. That movie should be a billion-dollar movie, said an executive at a rival studio when the film was tracking for $45 to $55 million domestic opening. The Disney-Zegler standoffs underscore the challenge Hollywood studios face as they attempt to rein in stars who court controversy on social media. And I find it funny. I think they addressed this in this article at some point. This is the same Disney that fired Gina Carano for a very minor tweet, basically saying we all need to stop, vilifying each other over the COVID vaccine. And yet Rachel Zegler, they can't even like get her restrained at all, right? For her part, Godot kept her comments on geopolitics limited to offering support for the civilian hostages during this October 7th attack, did not mix that message with the promotion of the film, smart. Zegler had already strained nerves of both the studio and Steven Spielberg's Amblin partners when she complained on social media that she wasn't invited to the 2022 Oscars as the star of Best Picture nominee. West Side Story, and a film distributed by Disney. That's really funny. And West Side Story, remember, lost a lot of money, as I recall. Sources say she had just begun production on Snow White in London, and Sean Bailey, then president of Walt Disney Studios Motion Picture Production, declined to cut her loose for the telecast. After Zegler aired her grievances, the Academy provided her with a ticket even though she wasn't nominated. So she's just a whiny brat, right? She is just a whiny brat. And it says here, and as time went on, Disney began increasingly loath to weigh in on anyone's speech, considering that the studio was sued in 2024 by actress Gina Carano, who claims she was fired from The Mandalorian for voicing her opinions on hot-button issues. They say all press is good press, but in Snow White's case, they were unabashedly wrong, says box office analyst Jeff Bach of Exhibitor Relations. Too much negative controversy surrounded this film for years, and it didn't help that the reviews were subpar, likely rendering this latest live-action adventure to D+ for many potential ticket buyers. And it's not just that, guys. The ratings, like the user scores, the critic scores for this movie, I want to say it's like a less than a 1.8 right now on Metacritic. I don't have it brought up, but it is disastrous. So kudos to Rachel Zegler on having yet another stinker, another bomb. She was also in that Hunger Games spinoff that I think lost money as well. She's unlikable. She's flat out narcissistic. She's been in nothing but crappy movies. And at this point, these are films that I have no problem skipping, not taking my kids to, because again, if us grown adult men who want to complain about stuff online aren't allowed to have an opinion on a children's movie, that's fine. I just don't have to spend my money to take my children to go see it. So good riddance, have fun with that, and I will catch you guys on the next one. All right, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for being here. I do have 2 channels, Minimal Effort Podcast, as well as my gaming channel. I do have a Twitch and Kick for my gaming channel. We do live streams over there occasionally, maybe once a week. And then if you are in the market for a new PC, make sure to check out Meta PCs. Click the link I have down below. Use code TBO at checkout for a special discount. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.